repeat.
Yes, my question is, what does the second death mean?
What does the second death mean? All right, I'll repeat that at birth, when the child is separated from the mother and the cord is cut, that when the spirit attaches to the flesh, that is the beginning of the creation of the living soul, and therefore the beginning of your zero time reference here on the physical plane, solid, axial, and time-bound, absolute. And during the course of your life, that journey that you call life on earth, which is inevitably met at the end of your journey by what we describe as a physical death, that would constitute the second death, which would open the doorway scripturally to hell. But the second death is not experienced by spiritual adepts that receive the information through a spiritual master sent here by the Most High that has that direct connection to Al-Hayyu, the life giver, that you are indeed a spiritual being having a physical experience, and that your body is no more than the fungus clinging to the light. In other words, you have learned through that connection to turn yourself inside out and your perspective of who and what you are. So you no longer think of yourself as a physical being that possesses a soul or spirit or an etheric aspect or ankh, as some vague peripheral aspect of yourself, like a ghostational aperture, but that you realize fully that you are the inner being, or the spiritual, the real trinity, the Ankh Ban Ka, the inner being of the etheric soul and spirit as the real you, and that the body is only an outward reflection that is without repose when the real you is separated from it, just like you were a whole light being before you descended down into the flesh. Once you establish and reconnect with the reality of who and what you really are, then the second death would no longer be applicable in your particular case, because you would then realize that what they call death is not finality, but only a rebirth in the spirit. That's why also in the scripture it makes reference frequently to being reborn. They don't mean in the flesh, but reborn in the spirit. I've been reborn. Reborn in that you are now awakened or reawakened to the reality that you are the being, the higher self inside of the flesh, and not the outward appearance that you see in the mirror. And that the inner being is immortal, a firm fixity and enduring, unperishable. And when you have attained that height of conscious vibration and awareness, you are truly indeed blessed, because from the point of the receipt of that fact, you are immortal and belong to the realm of deities, right? Now, the unfortunate among people are those that take very lightly their responsibility to reestablish their spiritual link between the higher and lower self, between that which is above and that which is below, and set their sights only on their physical connection. For them, the second death would be a totality of what they are, so that in essence, they would imagine when the body dies, the real them, the enigma, would die and be buried along with it. And that physical death would constitute for them a hell. In the reality, they would realize at some point that even though the body died, they're still conscious. You've seen pictures, horror pictures, of people that have physically died and been embalmed, worked on by morticians, placed in coffins, and while people are coming to view the body at a wake, for example, they're screaming out, "I'm in here, I'm alive. Why can't anybody hear me? I'm here, don't bury me, I'm alive, I'm alive." But they can't free themselves from this decaying flesh, because they never learned to come out of it. They never walked and took seriously the guidance of a spiritual master from on high. And not no nigger or cracker on earth, pretending to be something that they're not, and they dress sharply or whatever attracted to them in the physical sense, shiny red shoes like the Pope on a cooling board or whatever the problem is, and they got lost into the physical world and were thereby deceived by it, so that when the body died, that they imagined that was the end for them, and not just a separation or a rebirth into the spiritual realm, into eternity. So that's what the second death, that's the essence of it and the meaning of it. That's the danger of it and the blessing of the knowledge of it, and how John 8:32 makes reference to know the truth, and the truth will make you free. Or when it speaks of scripturally that the Messiah Jesus would make clear to you what death entails, so that you would be freed from the fears of death with the information, the factual right knowledge, that there is no death for a spiritual being, because the spirit and the soul and the etheric aspect of your consciousness never dies, but has experience after experience in the physical sense. All right? Now, it also makes reference to that those of you that are blind in this, so shall you be in the next, which is making reference to those of you that are religious and under the spell of religion, misguided, unfortunate souls, that you will experience one of those hells, because you never took seriously your responsibility to reestablish your link from on high. Therefore, if you didn't accept that responsibility, you'll never acquire the ability to respond to that event. And therefore, you would trap yourself in the mud of your own flesh, and your spirit would stay attached to your body, even submerged in the grave, and have to experience the deterioration, the maggots, and the separation from everybody else inside the belly of the earth, and total darkness, cut off forever from light, love, and the existence of the Creator, which of course is your own higher self. Is that clear to everybody? If not, if you have questions, now's the time.